Hello, and welcome to another episode of Mike Financial Education. Today we're going to talk about 10 important lessons from the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. Lesson 1. Success takes time. Sometimes a lot of time. I'll start the first lesson with an amazing example from the book. The book describes an ice cube sitting in a room that's at minus 10 degrees. The temperature in the room slowly rises and reaches minus 9 degrees, then minus 8 degrees, and so on. To an observer, it seems like nothing is changing because the ice doesn't melt. Only when the temperature in the room rises above zero and the observer starts to see some change because the ice begins to melt. To someone watching from the side, it might seem that only the last minute caused the change, even though, in reality, a lot of energy was invested to raise the room's temperature from minus 10 to 1 degree above zero. The moral from this story is that often our investment doesn't yield quick results, but it will yield results in the future. Therefore, we need to look at our investment today as energy we're investing for the future and not for the present. How can we apply this lesson to the financial world? Let's think, for example, of a person who dreams of becoming a millionaire. He starts saving money for a year, and in that year, he obviously doesn't become a millionaire. This causes him despair because he expects quick and immediate returns. So he breaks down and stops saving. Eventually, this process leads him back to an average financial situation. In contrast, if he had continued to save and invest for a long time, understanding that he's investing now for the future, he would be in a much better financial position. To summarize this lesson, remember that those who expect quick results will break down very quickly, and those who understand that good things take time will be able to persist and succeed in life. Lesson 2. The incredible power of small changes. Our second lesson today is about the incredible power of small changes. The book describes how our small habits will determine whether we succeed in life or not. While most people think that to succeed you need to make a dramatic and irreversible life change, science and mathematics show that reality is completely different. When we invest a small amount of energy over a long period of time, we can make an incredible change that sounds almost unrealistic. If, for example, we improve by just 1% each day for a year in a certain area of life, we will become 37 times better in that area. And how is this related to financial education? Think of it this way. If you will use this lesson to raise your income or to invest more money, your financial status will change. My recommendation for this lesson is to set a specific goal for your life and start scheduling at least 1 hour each day in your calendar where you'll deal with this goal. I have to say from personal experience that this works amazingly well. I want to share an example from my life. About 6 years ago, I started to learn about finance, and now my financial status is great. Lesson 3. Focus on the system, not just the goal. Our third lesson is about focusing on the method and not just the goal. We have a natural tendency to think about our goals and imagine how our lives would look if we achieved our goals. For example, if I want to be a millionaire, I will imagine how my life would look if I had a few million in the bank. There's nothing wrong with thinking about goals and imagining goals. The problem arises when we invest a lot of energy in fantasizing about the goal instead of investing a lot of energy in actions that advance us toward the goal. Let's take the dream of being a millionaire as an example and think about two possibilities. One possibility is of a person who invests energy only in the goal, and the second is of a person who invests energy mainly in the method and actions that will get him to the goal. The first person thinks for a decade about the goal of being a millionaire. Every day when he wakes up in the morning, he imagines himself with a private jet and millions of dollars in his bank account. Time passes, and obviously he doesn't improve financially because he doesn't do anything that would help him improve. Days pass, years go by, and he remains with the same dream without any improvement in his actual financial situation. In contrast, the second person made a simple decision. He will increase his income level by just $200 every month for a decade. He focuses on increasing his income in various ways, and eventually, after a decade, he manages to increase his income level by $24,000. To summarize this lesson, remember, if you focus on the path and the actions that are supposed to bring you to the goal, you will reach the goal. But if you focus only on the goal, you won't get anywhere. Lesson 4. Focusing solely on goals makes you miserable. Our fourth lesson today is about how focusing on goals alone makes you miserable. How many times have you felt sad or depressed because you feel you're not on the right track? How many times have you thought, ugh, if I were a millionaire, I'd be happy? So let me reveal a secret to you. According to almost all the research done, even when you reach the goal, happiness will fade, and you'll look for a new additional goal, and until you reach it, you'll feel miserable again. So what's the solution? The solution is not to constantly think about the big goals, but to think about the small actions along the way. Once you enjoy your daily activities, you'll gain two things. The first thing you'll gain is your happiness, and the second thing you'll gain is success and meeting your goals. It sounds crazy, but focusing on the small actions on the way to the destination, and not on the destination itself, is the best method for meeting goals. Let's think, for example, of two people training for a marathon. One starts running a kilometer as a first workout and thinks to himself, wow, in the marathon, I'll need to run this 42 times. If I feel tired now, what will happen in the marathon? The chance that this person will continue to train for a long period of time is zero. Why? Because he feels that the goal is unattainable. In contrast, the other person, who goes to the same workout and thinks, how fun, I managed to meet the goal, will have high motivation for the rest of the way, and therefore, this person has a higher chance to make his dream come true. To summarize this lesson, focus on the path to the goal and not on the goal. Lesson 5. Environment is more important than motivation. Our fifth lesson today is that the environment is more important than motivation. The book gives us an example of a doctor in a hospital who tried to make a change in the diet of visitors and patients. She wanted to make them reduce the number of sweetened drinks they consume. The way she did it was interesting. The doctor didn't talk to the patients and visitors about the dangers of sweetened drinks. She simply started to put water bottle vending machines throughout the hospital. Within 3 months, the experiment was over, and the results were amazing. The sale of sweetened drinks in the hospital decreased by 11.4%, and the sale of water bottles increased by 25%. This change happened just because she made water more accessible. What can we learn from this? The lesson is the incredible influence of the environment. For example, if I hang around in a place like a mall where many people shop and there are many temptations, the chance that I won't spend money will be very low, even if I have a strong will. On the other hand, if I'm in an environment without stores and temptations, the chance that I'll spend money is minimal. The tip from this lesson is that we can leverage the power of the environment to our advantage. For example, if I sit in an office where pictures of my goals and objectives are hung on the wall, without additional temptations, I can focus and progress at a very high speed. On the other hand, if I work on the same task in the living room, in front of the TV, and without concentration, I won't perform the task well. Lesson 6. One of the easiest ways to eliminate a bad habit is to reduce exposure to what drives the habit. Our sixth lesson today is that one of the easiest ways to eliminate a bad habit is to reduce exposure to what drives the habit. We all have bad habits, and what's common with all our bad habits? The common thing is that they start from a certain trigger. For example, a person doesn't smoke cigarettes, but rather reduces stress. In other words, the trigger is stress. A person doesn't eat junk food to survive. He eats it out of sadness, and so on. The more difficult we make for ourselves to reach the triggers that lead us to negative actions, the easier it will be for us to fight the negative actions. For example, if I'm addicted to smoking and the pack of cigarettes is placed next to me, the chance that I won't smoke is very low. On the other hand, if I put the cigarettes in a safe on the other side of the house, there's a higher chance that I'll be able to resist and not smoke. How is this related to financial education? We all have bad financial habits, such as uncontrolled shopping, expenses we're not aware of, and more. The best way to avoid negative financial habits is to make it difficult for ourselves to maintain them. If, for example, I set a limit for myself where I must report to a good friend on every expense over $200, suddenly it becomes harder to waste money. And the action will change from an automatic action to an action where I need to invest effort. Lesson 7. The majority determines, so determine who the majority is. Our seventh lesson today is called The Majority Determines, so determine who the majority is. In the 1950s, a psychologist named Solomon Asch conducted an experiment in which he brought actors into a classroom along with regular people. The experiment worked like this. Solomon asked the actors, who were the absolute majority in the classroom, to intentionally answer very simple questions incorrectly. For example, on the question of which line is longer between two lines. After the actors answered the questions in front of everyone, he discovered something amazing. The people who participated in the research gave the wrong answer just to please the other people in the classroom. They did this despite knowing it was wrong. The amazing thing is that the questions were at a very low level, such that even a kindergartner could identify that it was a mistake. Yet most people were afraid to go against the majority that was wrong. The lesson that is important to understand from this example is that when we surround ourselves with many people who negatively influence us, our chance of not deteriorating is almost zero. For example, if most of the people you're in contact with are in financial difficulties, your chance of not being in a financial situation like theirs is low. I think the important lesson from this is to consciously choose what content you consume and who you hang out with. Lesson 8. The best is the enemy of the good. Our eighth lesson today is that the best is the enemy of the good. The book gives us example of a university lecturer who taught art. The lecturer began teaching a photography course and decided to conduct an experiment designed to check in what ways students achieve better results. One group of students received grades according to the number of submissions they made, and for each photograph, they received 1 point. So if a student submits 100 photographs, he gets a grade of 100, and if he submits 90 photographs, he gets a grade of 90. The second group received grades in a completely different way, which was according to quality. The students were given a task to prepare one photo during the year, for which they would receive the entire grade. When the lecturer checked the products, he discovered a very interesting thing. The group that was given the task of preparing 100 different products managed to surpass the second group in terms of the quality of the creations, despite investing much less energy and time in each creation. So how did this happen? According to the book, when the photographers from the first group began to take their first pictures, they were exactly at the same level as the second group. But as time went on, and they took more pictures, they gained more experience. And that's the reason their photographs were better. The second group, who only thought about how to make the perfect picture, didn't gain any practical experience and therefore was less good. The lesson here is that we need to act and learn along the way. The best way to learn is learning through practical experience. This lesson connects to the financial world in several ways. The first way is that people are afraid to invest, and therefore they learn endlessly about investments without investing. In this way, they don't advance financially. It's better to try and fall with small amounts of money than to learn theoretical knowledge without gaining practical experience. The second way is the unnecessary wait for a golden economic opportunity to fall from the sky. People fantasize about a situation where the entire universe will change in their favor and offer them a golden opportunity without them making any effort. Just like winning the lottery without buying a ticket. This way of thinking hurts people and causes them not to act and not to gain experience. To summarize the lesson, start acting and learn along the way. Lesson 9. Make the change satisfying. Our ninth lesson today is to make the change satisfying. Our chance of repeating an action or habit for a long time without getting satisfaction from it is low. Therefore, we should understand how to make changes in our lives enjoyable and satisfying. For example, in children's toothpaste, they put flavors like strawberry and raspberry to make the child associate the act of brushing teeth with a good taste. So how can we apply this knowledge in the financial field? My advice is this. Saving is usually a boring thing, and therefore, most people don't save money. But you can make saving fun. If, for example, I promise myself that for every $3 I save, I put $1 aside to fly somewhere or to do something I love, I'll cause my brain to associate saving with fun, and that way, I'll be able to improve and persist over time. In summary, try to associate good financial habits with pleasure. That's the easiest and best way to persist. Lesson 10. Write our actions in a precise way. Our 10th and final lesson today is to write our actions in a precise way. As we learned in the second lesson, since I started writing things in my diary, my progress has become faster in an unimaginable way. The book recommends going even further, and not just writing things in a diary, but writing them in the most precise way. For example, instead of writing, "play the piano" on Tuesday, then say, "done with the piano," you might practice something like this, or that. On Tuesday, write practice for an hour and a half on Antonio Vivaldi's Winter Tuesday at 6 a.m. According to the book, the more precise we are, the easier it will be for us to meet our goals. The tip from this lesson is that the more precise we are, the easier it is for us to act. I really hope you enjoyed the episode, and of course, we'll see each other in the next videos as well.